In the spring of 1211, the largest cavalry army on Earth is moving south across the Gobi Desert. Roughly 100,000 Mongol horsemen, bound to a single ruler by personal oath, are riding toward the richest empire of their age, the Jin dynasty of northern China. Their road runs through a mountain corridor the Chinese called Yehuling, the Badger's Mouth Pass. In our history, an enormous Jin army tried to stop them there and was destroyed so completely that travelers passing through years afterward wrote that the ground was still white with bones. In this scenario, the Jin army is not there. In its place stand 45 United States Marines, one rifle platoon, carrying everything its members can lift and nothing more. There is no air support, no artillery, no satellite overhead, and no resupply of any kind. Their orders are written in 4 words: stop Genghis Khan. This video takes those orders literally and follows the arithmetic wherever it leads. Before the first shot, the mission needs a definition, because stopping an army and stopping a man are 2 very different problems. We will treat the mission as failed if the Mongol army pushes through the pass and continues its march toward the Jin capital. We will treat it as accomplished if the invasion of 1211 ends. We will also be honest about the numbers. Medieval chroniclers inflated everything, so where the sources disagree, this scenario uses the more conservative modern estimates. Most collisions between modern soldiers and ancient armies begin and end with psychology. In 1532, 168 Spaniards broke an Inca host thousands strong at Cajamarca and captured an emperor, largely because gunfire was sorcery to men who had never heard it. It is tempting to assume the Mongols would shatter the same way. They would not, for 2 reasons. First, these were not sheltered soldiers. By 1211, they had already stormed walled cities in western Jia, and their entire approach to unfamiliar technology was to capture it, copy it, and recruit the engineers who built it. A strange weapon impressed a Mongol as a tool to be stolen, not an omen. Second, and more important, Mongol doctrine never treated retreat as defeat. Withdrawing at full gallop was a rehearsed maneuver, practiced across decades of tribal warfare. A Mongol formation that scatters out of range after first contact has not been routed. It has begun collecting information, so the panic that decides most of these matchups in the first 10 minutes is off the table, and the fight becomes a problem of equipment, supply, and time. The platoon carries the standard tools of American infantry: riflemen with M4 carbines and M27 automatic rifles, grenadiers with M320 launchers firing 40mm shells, M67 fragmentation grenades on every vest. The anchor of the entire defense is a trio of M240B machine guns, each capable of accurate fire beyond a kilometer from a tripod. The standard rifleman load is 210 rounds, though on a mission with no resupply, every man would carry double, and the machine gun teams would be buried under linked belts. Under the heaviest realistic combat load, the platoon holds somewhere near 30,000 rounds of all types. Every Marine also carries night vision, and that single item will matter more than any weapon. Across the valley is a different kind of machine: 100,000 riders, each leading 3 to 5 remounts, which puts well over 250,000 horses on the move. Every man carries a composite bow with roughly 60 arrows in 2 quivers, a saber or lance, and dried meat and milk curd under his saddle. The army has no baggage train to attack and no supply line to cut, because the supply line walks on 4 legs beside each rider. It covers 60 miles a day and can sustain that pace for weeks. It is organized in a strict decimal system: squads of 10, companies of 100, regiments of 1,000, and divisions of 10,000 called tumans, maneuvering silently by flag signals and whistling arrows. It is commanded by Genghis Khan himself, alongside 2 of the finest generals who ever lived, Subutai and Jebe. Now the arithmetic. A Mongol arrow, shot in a high arc, is dangerous out to roughly 300 meters. A machine gun on a tripod kills at 3 times that distance, in daylight or in total darkness. In any exchange of projectiles, the Marines shoot first, from ranges the Mongols cannot answer, at hours the Mongols cannot see. 6 million arrows are useless if none of them can reach the firing line. But the same arithmetic cuts the other way. Give the platoon its 30,000 rounds and marksmanship beyond anything ever recorded, 1 casualty for every 3 rounds fired. The result is 10,000 Mongol casualties, a slaughter beyond anything the steppe has ever suffered, and it still leaves 90,000 men to ride past the empty brass. Fired ammunition cannot accomplish this mission. Whatever the platoon's victory condition is, it is not written in bullets, and that fact will shape everything that follows. The Marines fortify the narrowest throat of the pass, a frontage of perhaps 200 meters, with interlocking machine gun lanes and ranges marked to every boulder. First contact comes on the second morning, a reconnaissance party of 100 riders probing the corridor. The three M24Os open at 900 meters, and the engagement lasts under a minute. In almost any other century, a massacre like this decides the campaign on the spot. Here, it barely registers. Genghis Khan has spent 100 men to learn the range, the rate of fire, and the position of every gun in the pass, and by step accounting, information that cheap is a bargain. What follows is not a charge. The Mongols climb their adaptation ladder instead. Massed arrow storms are considered and abandoned, because the arrows fall short by 600 meters. Next comes their signature move, the feigned retreat, a small force galloping away in staged panic to bait the defenders into pursuit, into ground where numbers can close the distance. It fails for the simplest reason imaginable. Bait only works on someone willing to move, and a blocking force has no orders to chase anyone. On the second night, they try darkness, the tool that has covered Mongol approaches for 30 years. Dismounted parties creep up the slopes toward the gun line, and the gun line, watching them through night vision the entire way, lets them come to 400 meters before firing. For the first time in his life, Genghis Khan is fighting an enemy who owns the night more completely than he does. By the third day, the platoon has won every engagement it has fought, and this is precisely when it starts losing the campaign. The Mongols do what they always did to any fortress too strong to storm. They stop treating it as a battle and start treating it as an obstacle. The whistling arrows go quiet, the probes end, and scouts ride out along the flanking trails that local herdsmen and captured guides know well. This is not speculation. 2 years later, in our own timeline, this same army bypassed the strongest fortified pass in China by simply finding another road through the mountains. A pass matters enormously to the defender because it anchors his entire plan. To the Mongols, it was only ever the fastest of several roads. Within a week, 2 Tumans are across the range somewhere else, and the platoon is guarding a door in a wall that no longer exists. Meanwhile, the platoon's own clocks are running. The food lasted 3 days. Water purification keeps the streams drinkable, but the batteries that power the night vision are counted in hours of runtime, and when they die, the single greatest advantage in this war dies with them. Every Mongol casualty is statistically invisible to an army this size. Every Marine casualty is irreplaceable. Standing still, the Marines are winning every firefight and losing the war by roughly a Tumen a day. Which brings the mission back to its actual wording. The orders were never to stop 100,000 Mongols. They were to stop Genghis Khan, and in 1211, those are not the same thing. The Mongol Empire is 5 years old. It is not an institution. It is an oath, sworn man by man to a single ruler, and there is no succession plan behind him. The famous quarrel between his sons over inheritance is still 8 years in the future, when he eventually died in 1227. In the middle of a campaign, the entire imperial project paused for 2 years while the princes rode home to elect a successor. The most efficient conquest machine in history has a single point of failure, and he sleeps at the center of the great camp, beneath a standard of 9 white yak tails that announces his location to anyone who knows what it means. His protection is the Keshig, an imperial guard 10,000 strong, with dedicated night guards ringing the tent in rotating watches. It is a security system engineered against every threat the 13th century could produce: arrows, blades, poison, and treachery. It was never engineered against a rifle that kills from 800 meters, or against attackers who can see at midnight. Genghis commands from deep in the column, kilometers behind the fighting, which is exactly why no shot from the pass will ever reach him, and exactly why the pass was always the wrong objective. So the endgame looks like this. The platoon holds the badger's mouth just long enough to fix the army's attention, then abandons it in darkness and goes hunting. The target finds itself. Messenger riders converge on the imperial camp like spokes into a hub. The remount herds of the Keshig leave a footprint no other unit matches, and the 9-tailed standard stands above the one tent that matters. The approach happens at night, on foot, through picket lines that cannot see the men walking past them. It is one attempt with no second chance, Because 45 men discovered on open steppe at sunrise are not outfought, but simply drowned. 10,000 riders do not need to outrange a rifle. They only need to arrive from every direction at once until the rifles fall silent. The verdict comes in two parts. As a blocking force, the Marines fail. They inflict the most lopsided casualty ratio in military history, and the army still flows around them the way a river flows around a stone, because ground can be held but a map cannot. As a weapon aimed at one man, however, they have a genuine chance, better than any assassin of the age ever had. Killing Genghis in 1211 almost certainly ends the invasion, as every prince and tumen turns for home and the succession fight begins. Whether it strangles the empire itself is a harder question. Subutai and Jebe do not stop existing, and the machine might survive its maker. But that is a question for historians. For the platoon in the pass, the mission was always narrower and stranger than it first appeared. 45 Marines cannot stop 100,000 Mongols. One bullet, placed correctly, might stop everything those 100,000 were about to become.